The ancient city of Petra is one of the 7 wonders of the world, and deservedly so, as it has to be one of the most amazing archaeological sites left behind on the face of this planet. Petra is famous for its rock cut architecture, its water conduit system, and the rose-coloured stone from which it is carved. The area in southern Jordan where this mysterious site is found has been occupied by many different tribes throughout its history, but the nomadic desert-dwelling Nabateans are the alleged builders. It is believed that they were excellent at controlling the water supply in the barren deserts that only receive 6 inches of rain per year. It is said that from 100 years before Christ to 100 years after, they used their talent for carving into solid rock to build structures that could prolong long periods of drought. The official story also states it was built from the wealth accumulated from the sale of spices and precious metals, as it sits on the major trade routes from Asia and Africa. It is also believed that the temples were tombs to house Nabatean kings, but during our visit we saw things that caused us to question the official story. The city of Petra is comprised of temples, obelisks, altars, hundreds and hundreds of tombs, a theatre that could fit more than 3,000 people, and an entrance which is through a narrow natural geological gorge formed from a deep split in the sandstone with cliffs on either side.
So any trip to Petra begins with a 1.2 kilometre walk through the Sikh. Now this is a little trail that goes through the canyons with some carvings in the side of the rock, different sort of emblems, and there's a man and there's some camel feet as well, some camel toes. And after the walk through, you arrive at the most famous site on Petra, the treasury, which you can probably just about see behind me.
The treasury is 40 metres tall, with high ceilings and chambers underneath where skeletons were found, alleged to be the remains of Nabatean kings and their families. Scars from bullet holes can be seen on the face of the structure made by the local Bedouin tribes, hoping to dislodge treasures that are rumoured to be hidden within. The exact purpose of this huge construction is unknown, but they have been designated as tombs due to the skeletons found. Although, as we have said in our other films, how can we be sure that those are the remains of the builders? Maybe they were just people at a later date using it for shelter. Around 60,000 cubic feet of rock was carved out of the mountain using simple hammer and chisel type tools, which makes the building of this remarkably well preserved structure highly impressive.
So from the treasury, you walk past all the people and all the camels through another canyon.
As you walk through the gorge, you pass other temple-like structures carved into the base of the mountain, and you keep winding your way through until you reach the centre of the downtown area and the massive amphitheatre. Another amazing structure is about an hour's walk away, and requires a pretty significant climb to reach a temple similar to the treasury, only bigger. Again, huge amounts of rock must have been removed to carve this massive structure in the side of the mountain. This one is 50 metres tall and 45 metres wide, with a doorway several stories high. You can climb to the top to see the giant urn and the view which stretches on for miles and miles, with further creations hiding in the desert. And up there you are again reminded just how big this amazing archaeological site really is. Officially it is said to cover 60 to 70 square miles, but they admit they don't really know exactly where it ends. And you can see why, as there are rock carvings of all shapes and sizes all over the valleys. You find steps leading up cliff faces, temple-like structures high up in the mountains, and they estimate that only between 2 to 15% has been uncovered. That's at least 85% underground or hiding in the desert. In 2016, archaeologists used satellite imagery to find a large monumental structure buried beneath the sands, and GPR scanning has shown many more ruins under the ground. Roughly 8 kilometers away is an area referred to as a suburb of the main city called Little Petra. As the name suggests, it is on a much smaller scale, but there are a number of structures cut into the rock and plenty of evidence of water storage. And for those interested budget travellers, you can visit this site for free. The size of the site is one of the reasons we question the official story, as we find it difficult to believe that the millions of tons of rock removed in its construction was done by a nomadic tribe over the course of several centuries. The local sandstone is of an average hardness but still tough to chisel, so the manpower required would have been incredible, especially when you consider that 85% of the structures are still undiscovered.
So here's a great place to demonstrate the size of Petra. You can see the main valley going off down here in the Roman road, and there's all these sort of structures and caves and things in the background there. And then if we come around and pan around, it's all through here, all around here. And then in this area there's another sort of area where it looks like there's more temples. And then over off in the distance here there's more shapes. The mountain looks like it's completely cut and flat. Flat surfaces cut here, up the top here, up really high, up all the way around here. And then just over here as well there's another area where there's more caves and more sort of flat surfaces and temples. So it's just a massive area, absolutely massive. I think it's something like 60 square kilometers of land just filled with temples and caverns and, well, what they say is tombs, but, well.
There are parts of the official story that almost seem made up on the spot. I don't know how they can say 30,000 people used to live in Petra with 500,000 living in tents around the outside, or how they can explain that the lack of bodies found in the supposed tombs was due to robbers stealing them because they didn't find any jewels. It also surprises us how little excavation has been carried out. Jordan is not a poor country, and the entrance fee is high even by Western standards, so a lack of funding cannot be the problem. During our visit, we spent a couple of days with an alternative researcher who has a different explanation for the creation of some of the structures found. He first took us to the treasury and explained how Petra was a kind of school or university for studying time, astronomy and the weather. He says the treasury was a calendar for monitoring the seasons to help with trade and agricultural practices.
So what you're saying is that not all of this is for decoration. These represent certain things to do with either astrological or lunar or solar cycles, basically.
Yes, it's
so the columns represent the months. You've got the cups that represent the days.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This whole building is, decorated with I would say the Nabatean philosophy of time and astronomy, environment, almanac in general.
So hang on, just to clarify, so you're saying that this isn't just a tomb for a king, this is actually a calendar?
It is a calendar.
So structural features on the treasury represent certain cycles, and Mamoon told us how he made us do some more climbing to reach the high place of sacrifice, a location where he thinks the builders also use the sun to tell the time. There are 2 standing stone-type structures that have been carved out of the rock, i.e. they are attached to the mountain. They were officially thought to be phallic monuments to gods, but Mamoon thinks they were actually sun clocks. He thinks that the builders of Petra measured the time of day using the shadow cast by the standing stones, and due to the changing position of the sun during the year, one of the stones is for spring and summer, and the other for autumn and winter.
It's like a sundial, the same way that our shadow is going off in this direction now.
Yeah.
The shadow from these 2 structures is telling them the time.
Yes.
Right. So in the summer the sun's going to be right above, so this isn't going to really have much of a shadow, so this one is used instead.
Instead, yes.
Right. Okay. Excellent.
Just a few minutes away there is another area which Mamoon refers to as the almanac. As carved into the rock is a water clock, a rain monitor and a mirror for observing the stars. He thinks they use the passing of water through the segments of the clock to observe the passage of time at night and on cloudy days. Although this is officially thought to be where animals were sacrificed as an offering to calm some angry gods. There is a small water reservoir used to monitor evaporation in order to record when the last rainfall was. There is also another large pool of water supposedly used as a reflector of the night sky. for observing the stars and using the constellations to design the layout of the buildings at Petra. We didn't see them, but apparently there are many of these structures at various locations around Petra.
Thank you so much for showing us around. You have to check out Mamoun's work. We've tried our best to summarise it, but we've been studying for 15 years now, I think. 15 years so far. So it's pretty hard to summarise it in a film, but here's a book out. So
maybe the official story is a bit out of date now. The online community interested in ancient civilizations is fully aware that the internet has allowed us to form a larger, more complete picture of the history of the Earth. And there is enough evidence to justify at least considering that there was once a global civilization more ancient and more advanced than the mainstream claims. When we looked at the caverns, they seemed to be heavily eroded, with gaps and rounding of the rock that could take tens of thousands of years to create. There was also erosion on the inside of some of the rooms, so maybe they were underwater or had prolonged exposure to flash floods. Maybe the Nabateans did do some carving in the area, but the temples look newer than the caverns. So is it not possible that they are from different ages, and some of them possibly pre-Ice Age? So here's the biggest temple or mausoleum or whatever these things are. Huge thing. And next to it, it looks like there was something, but it's been heavily eroded. It's collapsed, it's gone basically. But there's sort of rooms underneath. This one also, like I say, there's the biggest one, but it's also really heavily eroded. You can see how, how much of what would have been the original structure has come off. That's what it would have looked like originally, you would think, all nice and smoothly finished like the treasury. So does that suggest that it's a different age, or the erosive force is just a lot more significant here, or God knows. In terms of evidence to suggest the builders of Petra were advanced, as we were walking around the site we continually saw signs of possible machine work. Sometimes there were marks that looked like they were made by a pickaxe, and other times more like a circular saw, and the precision of some of the carvings and flat surfaces was highly impressive. It seems odd to us that there are caverns high up on the vertical walls. Surely you would build at ground level unless it wasn't really a problem to carve rock at such a height. And the sheer size of the construction project would be much easier with technology. And it is not just the temples and caverns. Rock was removed to create steps, reservoirs and walkways. So a spot here where it looks like they've just cut through the mountain with ease. And there's many sites like this all over Petra. So what better place to finish the film than overlooking the treasury behind me? How do I summarise Petra then? Well, in a nutshell, it's an absolutely amazing place, deservedly one of the 7 wonders of the world. These structures carved into the rock are fantastic, a hell of a lot bigger than I thought they were going to be. The city itself is also much, much bigger than I thought it was going to be. And it just goes on and on and on. As we're walking through these mountains, we keep seeing steps going off and up into places, and a random set of steps just halfway up a mountain, and there's channels carved into the mountains as well. So it's massive place. Also, there's so many different levels of civilization. I mean, we personally think that the idea of this being just used for tombs and for sacrificing doesn't really hold much water. I mean, they didn't find any bodies or many bodies, and alternative theories such as Mamoun's need to be looked at a lot further. There's definitely evidence of levels of civilization, or many different civilizations having been here over the years. So it's possible with new theories coming out now of pre-Ice Age civilizations and Atlanteans and all this kind of stuff, that there's been civilizations around here for a very long time. So a beautiful place, needs to be investigated a hell of a lot more, and if you haven't been here then you should come, because it's absolutely wonderful. أصدق من شروح الكلام